welcome. Another beautiful day. My string of nice weather is still intact. Got a couple announcements. City Hall, right here. If you need the restroom, City Hall is open. We have the flip-flop to get lunch. So if you haven't eaten lunch yet, go patronize them. They did a lot of work to bring that trailer in and set that up. So they got some really good food, breaded tenderloins. I've been told that they have the old A&W recipe for coney dogs. So indulge. They got drinks. They got ice cream. So participate over. It looks like they're in line, so that's good. We have hats for sale. We did have a couple T-shirts. Just bring that to your attention. And we still have some vacancies for bricks for the memorial. So if you haven't gotten a brick, there's forms over there. They're still $60. I think we have a little more than 100 spaces. And when we fill that up, that'll give us about 1,200 alumni graduates that have bricks there. So where is the mayor? The mayor, I always have, hey, Dan, are you available right now? I always like to have the mayor kick this off, 10 or 15 minutes, and then Mayor Eckstein will say a few words. Okay? Thank you. Welcome back. This is the first time. Welcome home. See a lot of new faces. There's a guy sitting over there that I haven't seen in 61 years. Downey Croswell's his name. Put your hand up there, Downey. First time back for a reunion. So that's what this to me is all about, is seeing some old friends and classmates and that kind of thing. So I know you want to visit. I know you want me to shut up eventually. So we're going to move along here. And as always, tradition-wise, when we started this, by the way, this is our 12th alumni reunion. That doesn't count the dedication ceremony that we had in 2012. So I will have the Mayor Eckstein over here. He wants to say a few words. He will. Then we'll play the national anthem. Then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, as always. So if we could just have your attention, we'd really appreciate it. Mayor Eckstein. Yeah, if you would all stand, if you're capable of standing, we'll do the national anthem. And then the mayor will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. Your main team will do the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know if I can stand that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
While you're still standing, before I turn it over to the mayor, you know, we've lost so many of our classmates and alumni. Most recently, this last year, there's been several of my good friends that has passed away, no longer with us. Be able to, and they used to come, but not able to anymore, of course. So, could we just have a moment of silence for those people and to remember them? Thank you. Mayor Eckstein.
Anyways, I want to welcome everybody back, part of the city. We've got another good day. So the rumor is that Nick done some research and found out this is the best day to have it, the last Saturday in July.
Over the last 100 years.
Again, thank you for coming, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk.
We have a guest speaker that I'd like to introduce. What's kind of special to a lot of us that number one had him as a teacher, number two had him as a coach, and I'm one of those guys. Coach Bridge, Bob Bridge, as we call him, Puma Bob Bridge. He came 5 years ago and he did a presentation that was. It impressed me so much, and I think it did to anybody there that heard that. I know he had a few people. He had a few people laughing, a lot of people laughing. He had a lot of people cheered up. and I was one of those. And so I'm going to have him come up here. But first of all, I want to kind of give a little bit of background about Coach Bridge, because some of you may not know him. And so with that, I'm going to read this because I can't memorize it. Coach Bridge, Bob Bridge, he moved to Hartford City the summer of his 8th grade. And he was at the Catholic school, He attended and graduated at Hartford City High School years 1956 and graduated in 1960. He attended and graduated from St. Joe College in Rensselaer. I don't know that they still have a college. You shaking his head no. But he played 4 years of football there. And I think that's where they were the St. Joe Pumas, and I think that's where he got the name Puma Bob. I think that was an honorary name for being the most dedicated, most committed, best football player. Of course, he played football here at Hartford City. He attended law school, which is something that I didn't know about Coach Bridge. And I lost my place at IU. Went there for a year and a half in law. He started coaching football at Hartford City High School, student teaching in 1966. And I, for one, had him as a teacher. And for civics, I believe, and study hall. He taught social studies, coached football with Coach Alumni until June of 1975 at Hartford City and Blackford High School. He taught and coached at South Adams High School, 1975 and 1985. And he coached and taught at North Miami High School from 85 to 2010, where you didn't put that on here, Coach, but he had a state championship at North Miami High School. And it doesn't surprise me a bit. And he was there from 1985 to 2010, retired in 2010. He's still coaching at North Miami as an advisor, assistant football coach. And he's starting his 59th season in coaching. So with that, yes, go ahead. So I'll tell you a quick story about Coach Bridges and I's relationship when I played football. And I probably shouldn't tell this story, but I'm going to anyhow. So we were at football practice, and we were at the old football field, and we were at the end where the Parkside School was, if you all remember that, and in the end zone there, and we were doing defensive pass drills. Well, evidently he didn't like the way that I was performing, and so he called me a really nice name. I can't remember what it was, and I called him a name that Mom would really be proud of, what I called him, and he told me to get off the field. So I called him something else. It wasn't so nice. It wasn't my best friend or your angel or anything like that. But so I'm walking off the field, and about the 5-yard line, my helmet comes off. About the 15-yard line, my jersey comes off. About the 25-yard line, and I'm walking towards the school. I'm walking towards the East End, and my shoulder pads come off. I got down to the 50-yard line, and my football pants came off. And got down to about the 30-yard line, and my girdle pants came off. And during that time, I'm watching Coach Leaf, and he's over with the defensive lineman, working with Tiny Clark, if y'all remember Tiny Clark. He was defensive line coach. And I seen Coach Leaf coming, and he was kind of heading me off. So I got to the end zone, and he caught up with me, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said that, started with an S for a son, and I said, "I'm done." I think that was my senior year. I was one of the captains, but that's either here or there. I should have been more of a leader, but I was quitting. I was done. Coach Lee puts his hand on my shoulder. I told him the story, what was going on. He goes, "I understand. So do you realize you're standing here in your jockstrap? And you got to walk 2 blocks to the hospital? Good point, Coach. So I went back and picked up on my uniform and headed to school. And Coach Bridge, being Coach Bridge, I love that guy to death. But he got back to the school before I left and took me up to the gym, and he made it straight with me why I was who I was and why I needed to be a better person, a better leader. And with that, I'll tell you what, he's taught me a lot about life, just that he doesn't realize that. I played 3 years as coach. Wasn't the best football player, but anyhow, it was a great experience. So with that, Coach Kumba Bridge.
Nick.
There's a couple retired coaches. One lives in Lafayette, one lives in Delphi, and we go to lunch once a week. And about, what was it, Nick, a month ago? We're going into a pub at noon in Rossville to go to lunch. And my phone, and I'm not a big cell phone guy, I'm a yellow tablet guy. And Nick calls. Well, there's a bench outside, so I said, you guys go in and order me a Bloody Mary, I gotta take this call. So he said, would you give the same talk that you gave 5 years ago? And I said, who wants to listen to it? He said, well, maybe nobody, but would you do it? And I said, okay. So one afternoon, it took me 3 hours to find the folder that I had to talk on. And then I redid it one Sunday afternoon, poured several Yangling beers, and I did this. So, first of all, that definitely was an incident, and you were a sophomore.
I was a sophomore. Right?
Sophomore, not a freshman yet. And
that was a long time ago, Coach.
yeah. Also, that same year, Pat Ducey quit football the 3rd day. Okay, I'm not bad mouthing, but 2 days later, he's running, and he went out for cross country. Coach Lee said, why did you quit football? Too much running. And 2 days later, he's on the cross country. I could never figure that out, but okay. This really is a tremendous honor. And Nick asked, how can you say no to Nick and Beth? I'm not worthy because I came here in 8th grade. Now, some of you might not know, Nick mentioned, well, no, the mayor mentioned Newberry's. Well, my dad was the manager of the G.C. Murphy store, which is now Grass. And he would be upset. He would definitely be upset. But we came here in 8th grade and went to the Catholic school, because that's part of my talk here, and there were 9 boys and 7 girls in that class. And when I came in, they said 4 of those guys, their first name is Jerry, out of the 9. Jerry Bennett, Jerry Ford, Jerry Parker, Jerry Wilhelm, and they were all called Chops, you know, out on the playground. So I graduated from there. Pete Ballinger, who became a priest, was in our class also. Joe Lenoy and some of those guys. So then we came to the high school. Judy, Nick, Beth, how you put this on and set up, all the people setting up, the disc jockey and the people and the ladies cleaning up and serving the meal. Let's give them all a round of applause for that. I'll try to give a little meaning, share today's events, and reflect back on being the fellowship of being in Airedale, because that really didn't strike fear into the opponents when you said, here comes the Airedales, and you're going up against the Huntington Vikings. It didn't shake them. But there is a common thread. Our numbers are also, right, Mallet, getting smaller as we come to these things. And then, I don't want to talk politics at all, but the other night, I was drinking some Gentleman Jack and watching Joe Biden say he was not going to run. And then I looked and I said, most of the people in this room were as old as Joe Biden. So that's the only politics I'm bringing up. There is a 6-year gap when I went to college and law school. Then I came back in 1966, and John Carbo said, come to our house. And Dean, you had like a picnic table, lunch, or eating thing inside your house. So he introduced me to Eldon Leith, and he said, would you like to help coach football? I said, heck yes. I don't think I said heck. I said, heck yes. And so I got hired and coached that year, and that was your sophomore year, yeah. And there's a couple guys down there, Dick Cook, Max Bennett. Oh my God, I love you guys. I love just to be here. But there was a gap, and then I got to student teach there. And then, but John started me in my coaching. And then Eldon gave us a chance. And then this morning, or at noon, at the park, and then at the Pickle with a couple beers, Ron Furness and I reminisced. And Connie, his sister, was in Joanne and I's class, our class. But I want to reflect back, and I have a list of people, and if you mention them, then you think, oh, you're going to forget some. But administration, Mr. Blackburn, superintendent, and then Dr. Galloway. And then Mr. Payne came as assistant. Well, Jill Payne, Jim Shoemaker, Joanne and I both taught Jill in class. Jim Shoemaker and his younger sister went to the Catholic school with my younger brother. And now Jill and Jim, and they have a son, Justin, who's now a lawyer, but he used to coach. And Friday, I'm going to meet him in Wabash, and we're going to have lunch together. The principal was Mr. Clark, and then it became Dr. Emhoff, if you remember those guys. The assistant principal, secretary, or boss was a lady by the name of Mrs. Williamson, if you can remember her. And then the support groups, the librarians and their helpers, the secretaries, and the custodians, Cy McCaffrey, and Jerry Shady. Sorry, Joe, when you were mayor, Jerry Shady ran the town, and the high school and so forth. Now, in English, Mrs. Henderson, Mrs. Daniels, Mr. Bill Smith. I'm not talking to the ladies now. Gentlemen, do you remember Bobby Clift?
Oh, yeah.
All right, Dean.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. In math, how many times did you go into algebra? Here's Mr. Ali, and he had an assignment on the board, and then the day of the report card, he would put that on and put the report card face down, and you weren't allowed to look at it until you were leaving the room. Mr. Curran, Mr. Key, Mr. Saxon, Mr. Hale in business, language, Mrs. Fee, Miss Fee. My wife took French. I don't know why. I had Mrs. Redden for 2 or 3 years in Latin. I think my wife was smarter than me. Social studies, which I ended up joining, Mrs. Hartzell, Mrs. Lindsay, and then we were talking today, the old North Ward, and a guy by the name of Mr. Nelson Reese, who was just a little different. Okay. In music, choir was Miss Nesbitt, but you cannot mention Hartford City or Blackford without mentioning Mr. Fred. He is an absolute icon, an absolute icon. Okay. Coaches, You already mentioned Tiny Clark, John Carbone, Eldon Lee. Claude Weeks that you heard about last year. Dave McCracken. I got a real short story. I was not good enough to play basketball at all, okay? So I became a manager. So it was Christmas break, and all my buddies, Dave Wagner and all them, had basketball practice, and Dave McCracken says, see that guy up in the gym, sitting way up? He said, go up there and answer any questions. I said, okay. I go up, and it's Branch McCracken, the IU coach. I thought, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. Later, I go to law school. We crossed paths, and Branch McCracken says, I remember you. He said, anytime you want to come to a ball game, he said, you're sitting on our bench. I thought, okay, thanks, Dave. And you can't mention basketball without Johnny Bob Strout, Frank Teets, a guy by the name of Ron Lebo, Jimmy Powell, Dave Dick, Kenny Dorton, and Dick Cook. How about Dale Johnson, the baseball coach at one time in Hartford City? Yes. Okay. If I left anybody out. Here's are the things that I reflect on. First of all, who was the guy on the Johnny Carson show? Doc Severson?
Yes.
He was playing a concert at Taylor University and was driving around. And one night on the show, and my wife watches all that stuff, I don't. He mentioned there's a building over someplace that the walls are propped up, which was the gym. Yeah. I mean, and then we were talking earlier. School's going to start, so you're outside the gym lobby area, or you're in the front entrance, and you go up those concrete steps. Okay, all right. Then you get to the the main floor, and the steps, and everything's wood. Everything's wood, and you could hear it. Ron Furnace talked about that today, walking on the wood floors. Junior high locker was under the stage. Okay, now can you imagine Huntington and Tipton coming, varsity athletic teams, and that's where they dressed, underneath that stage. I remember the varsity locker room. You went down those steps, and when you became now a junior or senior, you got your own hook. Your own hook. Your own hook. And then the swimming pool was on the other side. The classrooms on the first and second floor, and then Mr. Hale in the business department down underneath in the basement. I mean, oh my God. And then when I came back as a teacher, somebody was talking today, helping you. She was in study hall in the library, and there you are, and we're up, the teacher's up on a desk like this, and then you're there in the study hall in the library. And then I taught social studies across the hallway before we went to Blackford, Joe, and at the North Ward. And Nelson Reese was across, and you're at the North Ward, so you had to go across the area. Okay? All right, you guys that played sports, remember where the coaches' offices were, down that little ramp, and then across, you're on a bench where you were getting taped. And John Carbone, coach or athletic director, would go to Camp Atterbury and bring back boxes of Thermogesic and salt tablets that we would get after practice, which now you would get fired. Okay. Where we were talking today, where did you go to lunch at Hartford City? The Doghouse. How many of you guys remember Marcia Helms and Davy Crockett fast dancing at the Doghouse? I mean, speaking of Davy Crockett, we were going through who was on our football team, and I'm still trying to coach now. And when I tell the kids, one of my best friends in high school, one of my classmates, and he always got me in trouble in Mrs. Lindsay's class. and he threw spit wads off of her big maps, and they would come and land on me, and then she thought I was throwing them. And I said, hey, one of my teammates playing football was Davy Crockett. And they said, they had that back in Tennessee at that time. But I remember Marcia and David. Now I want to go back. Marching band, every athletic team and members had to walk across Highway 3. Go 2.5 blocks, hope you got sprayed down by Max Wagner, or my wife she wasn't my wife then, she was there, and you'd walk 2.5 blocks to go to practice into a game. And then on Friday nights, the marching band had to go down and go across. That's an absolute nightmare, but it happened. 4 practices, to and from games. I remember, and some of you guys will like this, people. I first started teaching at my own room, and I put a quote up on Fridays for football. And this girl says, the marching band's tonight. And I said, it's a football game. She says, there'll be more people there watching the band than there will be for football. So I said to Joanne, let me know that. And lo and behold, after halftime, maybe a couple parents stayed, maybe. And everybody walked, the band marched, went back to the school. And I thought, ooh. Then one guy came and said, what about cross country on Thursday? And that kind of hit me on the head as a teacher that I was not to be a football coach. I was to be a teacher. And that was a vehicle to be able to relate to them. And that was a really, really important lesson. And then think about the unique gym that you play basketball. And the last time I talked, I started mentioning some of the basketball players that played that were awesome. And then I thought, I'm going to forget some. But I mentioned Jack Eli and Cecil Beeson and Bill Grover and those guys. And Jack Eli's sister came up to me afterwards, and she was crying and hugged me, and she said, thanks. But like Kenny Joe Wrench, Dave Wagner wasn't too bad. The guy by the name of Jerry Winger was pretty good. Kenny Joe Wrench. I mean, you think of those guys, and they're icons. But you had the pep club. Remember the pep club? And then we either went to Marion for the regional, or sometimes we had up at the Wigwam down in Anderson. That was Blackford more than anything, I think, against the Shepherds. Closing thoughts. I went to a clinic. Dave Wanstead was the head coach of the Bears. And he said, money, Miss Linda, you listen to this, money can buy a house, but not a home. Money can buy a bed, but not a good night's sleep. And then I traveled out to the Air Force Academy to learn some option football. And they said, you can control, and I'm talking to you people now, even at our age. I get up at night or in the morning. Am I overdue, Nick? Am I talking too long? Okay. I'm about.
You can take another hour or two.
No. I need a beer.
I want you to.
But think when you get up, positive attitude. You can control your attitude, and you can control the effort you put into it that day. So I get up. My wife doesn't give me a lot of honeydew things to do or whatever, but I get up and I think, I'm going to make this a positive day, and whatever I do today, I'm going to give quality effort. So Thursday night, I'm at the practice field, the game field on Parents' Night this Thursday, trying to give good effort. There is a book called Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield that the Eastbrook coach told me to read. And in the beginning, preface, 300 Spartans are getting ready to defend against the Persians. And they said the Persian archers will fire so many arrows in the sky to block the sun. The Spartan said, good, we get to fight in the shade. And I think that's pretty good. I have two other little things. We're in the Hoosier Dome, 1993, getting ready to play for the state championship. The officials come in to get the captains. I'm reading to our players before the state championship, the little engine book. The little engine book. And the officials just stopped. He said, Coach, we've never seen anything like that. Later, we had a reunion, and the players, we had girl managers, and they had their kids come down out of the crowd, and I read it again. And I have now read it to our two granddaughters every time we get to see them. And then, I don't know what kind of music you like. Garth Brooks has a song called The Dance. And every time we lose a ball game or the end of the season, when everybody else leaves, I sit in just total silence, no alcohol, and play the dance. What an honor to be asked. Dean's going to talk next year about John. One last thing. This is a paperweight, but this red thing here, I'm going to talk about John for a minute.
Take your time.
Dean, and Mike asked me to be a pallbearer for Dean's mother, Georgiana. You can't tell John Carbo no. So I said, okay. Then he passes away. Dean and Mike asked me, and that red rose is the lapel pin when I was John and Georgiana's pallbearer. The yellow one, Claudia gave me when Dave passed away. And Jim Barry comes over and he says, do you have any issues? I said, hell yes, I have a lot of issues. And he said, no, can you be a pallbearer? So I was sitting next to Jim Shoemaker, ex-Marine farmer, and Dave's grandson, who's like 230 pounds. So I said, I don't have any issues, but they're going to be on the ends, and I'm in the middle. So these are the two things from there. But for you, I didn't want, Joanne asked Claudia to make sure you're there. I got a hold of Dean and Linda, and I said, and I think this is important, I said, let's get together, and it's not in a funeral home. Let's get together, and that's why we're here. But thank you very much, and I hope I gave you something to think about.
Bob will make a repeat performance for about 5 more years, okay? So I think I can listen to it forever. He's so interesting, and he remembers so much from back in high school especially. We'd just like to give you a little bit of token of our appreciation, the committee. That's for you.
Okay, I wore the black one today.
I saw that, and then you got a white one.
Okay,
Okay, and this is for your lovely wife to take her out to dinner.
okay.
Okay, so there you go.
And nobody believes, we were here, what, our 50th reunion here, Mal, remember that? And 50th. No, you don't remember that? Okay. And nobody believes that we're still married. And then we were neighbors with Judy and George and them. Their house isn't there, ours is still there.
Yours is still there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Coach.
That's all we've got, so stay as long as you want, visit, and hey, thanks for coming, we really appreciate it. We'll try to do this as long as you're willing to come, so be safe going home.